A very good morning, children. In the previous class, I had given you very short summary of the three chapters from your reader, that is the Footprints Without Feet book, and four poems were dealt from your first flight book. Okay, I know it was very short summary, but anyhow you have to go through the whole chapters in detail. Now today, let me continue with the remaining 5 lessons of your first flight book. The first chapter is A Letter to God, and here the story begins with a brief description of the setting, in which we could say that it happened in the rural area of Mexico, okay, where a hard-working farmer as Lencho was living, and he was expecting a very good harvest that year. Like all other farmers, he was also expecting the rain and hoped that a little downpour would certainly give him the good crops. Okay, but what happened? Unluckily, it the rainfall turned into a hailstorm and destroyed his crops completely, and the whole valley there where his corn crops field was, it was now covered with hailstones, and not a leaf was visible. Okay, it shows that there was a total loss of harvest. Okay, and although the loss of his crops had shattered Lencho completely, yet he had firm faith in God. And in order to inform the God, okay, he wrote a letter asking God to send him 100 pesos so that he can sow his crops again. So he put the letter in an envelope, signing to God, and mailed it. So when an employee of the post office saw the letter, he was amused as well as confused. Okay, that how anyone can write a letter to God. And then the postmaster opened the letter, and he became so serious. He praised this man for having such faith in God, so he decided to help the farmer. He asked the employees to of his post office to contribute, and he himself gave a part of his own salary. Okay, and the entire initiative was undertaken so that the farmers' faith in God was not shaken. Okay, but they were able to collect only a little more than half the money requested by Lencho. Okay, and they also put the money in an envelope and addressed it to Lencho. And then the next Sunday, Lencho came to the post office, and the postmaster took out that letter and gave it to him. Lencho was not at all surprised. Okay, but when he counted the money, he became very angry, because he thought that God could not have made the mistake, isn't it? And what he did, he wrote another letter to God, and he put the letter into the box, mentioning that next time it should not be sent by the mail, because what was the reason? He had complained that he had received only 70 pesos, and he also asked God to send him the rest of the money. Okay, but not through mail, because the post office employees were a bunch of crooks. Okay, so the main theme of the story is all about faith. Faith is the greatest virtue. Okay, so that was about the first lesson, or letter to God. Coming to your next lesson, that is Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Okay, so here this is an extract from the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. He was a South African leader, greatly struggled for the freedom to his people. He struggled against the racial discrimination between the whites and the blacks. Okay, and he speaks about a historic occasion when he was sworn in as the president of South Africa. So it was a historic day, that was the 10th May, and he calls this occasion as the inauguration. And what was the inauguration about? It was of the first democratic non-racial government in South Africa, and a huge gathering of international leaders who had assembled in Pretoria to mark the end of white supremacy. Okay, the swearing in ceremony took place in a big sandstone amphitheater in Pretoria, and Mandela was accompanied by his daughter Zinani and many other great presidents and all also followed him. Then came the historical moment when he took the oath as the president of South Africa, where he pledged to obey and uphold the constitution and dedicated himself to the well-being of his people. In his public address, Mandela spoke of the newborn liberty. He thanked the international guests gathered there to be with his countrymen in the common victory for justice, peace, and human dignity. Mandela also pledged himself to liberate his people from poverty, suffering, and discrimination. And after the swearing in ceremony, a spectacular show by jets, defense, and police force was presented over there. And after that, the whites sang one national anthem, and the blacks also sang the another one. Mandela doesn't forget to recall history. Okay, he remembers how a system of racial domination was created against the black in their own land. Okay, and the black people were denied even the basic freedom. And he also remembers the freedom fighters who sacrificed their lives against the oppression. Okay, and he pays tribute to many great leaders there. These leaders taught him that courage was not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. Okay, Mandela also says that no one is born hating others because of color or religion. So love comes naturally to the human heart. We should learn to love. The author also talks about the twin obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, and his country. Okay, and Mandela also says that although he says that he was born free, but when he grew up he realized that his freedom was just an illusion, and he began to feel hunger for freedom where it was denied to him. So he joined the African National Congress because he wanted that his people should also be free. And now he promises that each one of his people would get an environment where he would fulfill the twin obligations. He pledges to provide freedom to his people to live with dignity and self-respect without any fear. Okay, so this autobiography is not just the life story of an exceptional world leader, but we feel Mandela's deep craving for freedom that was denied to him and all other blacks like him on racial grounds. This chapter mainly highlights the theme of freedom and equality. Okay, right to freedom and equality should be universal right, irrespective of caste, color, creed, or religion, etc. So here the chapter discusses how Nelson Mandela and the other Africans faced all the challenges, how they fought for their rights, and they finally achieved the liberty and freedom. So coming to the next chapter, that is the third chapter, two stories about flying. Okay, here it has two parts, his first flight and the black aeroplane. The first flight, it is a beautiful description of how a young seagull overcomes his fear of flying. The young seagull is quite timid and fears of falling in his attempt to fly. Okay, so the young seagull was quite grown up, and his two brothers and a little sister had already learnt how to fly by imitating their parents. Okay, they would run to brink of the ledge, flap their wings and fly away. But the young seagull, it was too afraid to fly. Okay, and the seagull's parents They did all the efforts to encourage him into flying on his own, but the poor bird was scared to his soul. Okay, he simply refused to make any effort. So they even tried to make him understand that he would starve on the ledge, but no warnings seemed to work. Okay, so in order to teach him a lesson, the family flew from the place, leaving him alone. Okay, and now he had not even eaten anything since last 24 hours, and he was very hungry. So he looked at her mother with pleading eyes, hoping that she would melt and offer him the needed food. At first the mother looked at him, but then she picked up a piece of fish and flew towards him. The mother was very smart. She did not come straight to him. She halted inches away from him. Okay, and with her wings motionless, the seagull wondered why she was not coming. He could not bear, and he was maddened by hunger. So, without thinking any further, the seagull dived at the fish in his mother's beak. Now he could not reach it and fell from the ledge downwards into the open space. And this free fall filled him with fear, and he cried. But this stark terror lasted only a minute. Soon he noticed that his wings spread naturally and he was floating in the sky. And he realized that he was flying, and he uttered cries of joy and started flying higher and higher. So his whole family also flew around him and screamed with joy. Okay, after some time, they all landed on the sea, the family, and they asked him to come there. Okay, so when he dropped his legs to stand on the green sea, his legs sank into that mud, and he cried with fear. But soon, when his belly touched the water, he did not drown any further, and he began to float on the sea. Okay, so the whole family was celebrating for the young seagull's first flight. Okay, so basically, what are the themes we found here? It is courage and self confidence can help anyone to overcome any obstacles in their life. Okay, be cruel to be kind. Okay, and you are more powerful than you know. So we must dare and act if we want to succeed in life. Now coming to the second part, that is the black aeroplane. It is a story about a mysterious event. Okay, and this story is narrated by a pilot. One night he was flying his old Dakota aeroplane over France, and it was just a starry night, and he was going to England to spend his holiday with his family. Okay, he was very happy, and through his wireless he contacted the Paris control, and he just turned to 12 degrees west and found himself 150 kilometers from Paris. But suddenly the narrator saw huge black clouds before him. It was not possible to fly up over the clouds. Okay, even he didn't have much fuel with him. So he decided to take the risk and flew his aeroplane straight into the clouds. So when he entered, there was suddenly complete black, and his compass had stopped working. When he was trying to contact the Paris control, okay, he couldn't because all the instruments stopped working. Suddenly what he saw, the narrator, that a black aeroplane approached near him, and even he could see a pilot in it. Okay, and he started following the black aeroplane like an obedient child. Now he was worried because it was half an hour about the fuel. Okay, but just then the black aeroplane it started coming down, and he too followed it. And the writer was out of the clouds. He could see the lights of the runway, and when he turned to look at the aeroplane, black aeroplane, it was nowhere. The sky was empty. So the writer, he went to the control center and asked a woman about the other pilot. The woman looked at the writer surprisingly, and she just laughed and said that there was no other plane flying in that stormy night. Okay, so it was the writer's strange experience that he had one ghostly night while flying his Dakota aeroplane thousands of feet above the land amidst the dark clouds. This was the story of the black aeroplane. Coming to the next chapter is the from the diary of Anne Frank. Okay, so Anne Frank was a young Jewish girl who was born in Germany. Okay, and she is little apprehensive about writing her diary, though she is interested in it. Why? Because she feels that doing so is going to be strange experience for her, as she has never written anything before, and moreover she feels that no one would be interested in reading the thoughts of a young teenager. Still, she starts writing, and she wants that she would be able to confide in her feelings with the diary without any hesitation, actually. So although a young teenager, Anne did not have any friends and she felt all alone. She was an introvert kind of a girl. Okay, her parents, aunts loved her quite dearly, yet she always felt the strong urge of a true friend with whom she could share her feelings without any hesitation. So she also thought about an old saying that paper has more patience than people. Okay, so she found it quite right, as paper won't react the way people do. So this was an encouragement for her to write her diary, and uh, she gave her name lovingly as Kitty. Okay, so she began her diary by giving a brief sketch of her life, that she was born on 12th June 1929. She had a sister 3 years older to her. She lived in Frankfurt until she was 4. Her father migrated to Holland in 1933, and Anne Frank was sent to the Montessori school, and she stayed there until she was 6. And when Anne was in the 6th form, that is the 6th class, her teacher was Mrs. Cupris, the headmistress, and they had great love for each other. Anne's grandmother fell ill in the year 1941. Okay, and Anne loved her greatly, uh, and thought a lot about her, isn't it? And Anne's birthday fell in June 1942, and solemn celebration included the lighting a candle in the memory of the departed grandmother event. On Saturday, 20th June 1942, okay, Anne Frank made first entry in her diary, and it was in the form of a letter addressed to her diary Kitty. She wrote about her class affairs, that it was a day of declaration of results and students were full of anxiety. There were bets among the classmates that who would go to the next class and who might fall in doing so. So Anne also mentions that teachers are the most unpredictable creature and one can't tell anything about them. Okay, so Anne describes her experience with her mathematics teacher, Mr. Keesing. She writes that one day Mr. Keesing punished her for talking in the class. He gave her extra homework and asked her to write an essay on a chatterbox. Okay, she wrote it, but she again talked in the class. Now she was given to write an essay on an incorrigible chatterbox. So Mr. Keesing liked the essays written by Anne Frank, but Anne could not give up the habit of talking in the class. So as a punishment, Mr. Keesing asked her to write an essay on an unusual title. Quack, 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 said Mr. Chatterbox. Anne wrote this essay in the form of a poem. It was about a mother duck and the father swan. The father bit the three ducklings to death because they quacked too much. And it was a satire on Mr. Keesing. But he took the joke in the right way and he read the poem to the class and other classes also. He allowed Anne to talk in the class and never again gave her the extra homework. Okay, so basically the chapter throws light on the themes of loneliness and the teacher-student relationship. Okay, that we came to know about Mr. Keesing and all, that how the matter was resolved at last. So here we come to the end of chapter 4. Coming to next chapter, the last chapter for your midterm exam, that is the 100 dresses part 1. Okay, so here it is a story about a girl who is teased by her classmates because she is different. Wanda Petronsky, a girl who came from the poor part of town, is the only student in her class with a funny Polish name. Okay, and she was a young Polish girl whose family had immigrated to America. There in one of the towns, she studied in a school with other American students. She belonged to a very poor family and could not afford to wear new dresses. Therefore, she always comes to school in a faded blue dress every day. Her dress was clean but not properly ironed. She used to take the fixed seat in her class in the corner of the room number 13 in the last row. Okay, where most of the noisy boys used to sit. And as she came on foot from Boggins Heights area, she brought a lot of dirt with her shoes, and she preferred to sit away from the students of elite class who made fun of her poverty. Moreover, she was a kind of an introvert girl and kept quiet most of the time in her class. Okay, and nobody even had heard her voice of laugh. And students used to pay attention to her only outside the school hours. And while going back home, they waited for her to make fun of her. Two of her classmates, Peggy and Maddie, they often did so. Okay, Peggy was from rich family and she had pretty clothes. Maddie, on the other hand, came of a moderate family. Okay, but she was Peggy's closest friend. Now, Wanda Petronsky would become a victim of criticism and fun because of her weird name and her faded dress. Peggy and Maddie were not bad girls, but they used to have some fun with Wanda as they found her name funny. Okay, and Peggy made fun of Wanda by asking her how many dresses she had in her almirah, that is closet, and Wanda would reply that she had 100 dresses of all different colors and designs. So Peggy would also asked her about the materials, maybe of silk and all. So Wanda would also tell them that she had 60 pairs of shoes. Okay, and the girls would suppress their laugh when talking to her. So Peggy may seem to be mischievous, but she was not arrogant. Okay, she and other girls could not understand why Wanda behaved strangely and gave false statements about her dresses and shoes. The girls only made fun of Wanda, but they never made her cry. Maddie too was a poor girl and used to wear the clothes given by others, so she was little sympathetic towards Wanda, but she couldn't object to Peggy's remarks as both were very fast and close friends. Okay, she did not like Peggy's asking Wanda about the dresses. She used to feel so bad, but she couldn't stop teasing. She couldn't stop teasing Wanda. Maddie even decided to write a note for Peggy asking her to stop making fun of Wanda, but she couldn't muster up the courage to do so. And Wanda was absent from school for 2-3 days, but when she came to the third day on Wednesday to the school, both Peggy and Maddie noted her absence, and they were wondered. No, sorry, children. Even on Wednesday also, she missed the school. Okay, so now Maddie remembered Vanda talking about one of her dresses, which was pale blue with colored trimmings, and she approached nearer, and Maddie began thinking about it. The girls were to design dresses and the boys were to design the motorboats in a competition which was organized in the school. And in Maddie's opinion, Peggy would only win the contest because she was very good at designs. It was the day when Miss Mason, their class teacher, would announce the results of the drawing contest. So Peggy and Maddie, they hurried to their school, though it was drizzling. Nobody waited for Vanda, and the girls, they reached their school only to be surprised. Hundreds of designs of dresses were displayed in the classroom, and Miss Mason announced that Jack Biggles had won for the boys. She also said that all the 100 designs of dresses had been made by only one girl who had won the medal, and she was no other but Vanda Petronsky. Everyone was astonished to know that Vanda could draw, but she was absent on that day too. Everyone applauded as the sketches made by her were all beautiful and different. Peggy and Maddie identified the blue and the green dress once mentioned by Vanda, and they were shocked to know her great quality of drawing and appreciated her drawings wholeheartedly. Okay, so this was about the 100 dresses. So what theme we get here, children? One of the themes is about bullying. Okay, even though Peggy and Maddie do not think of their teasing as bullying, they do not mean to make Vanda unhappy, but still. Okay, and Maddie, she begins to recognize it as such, but does not want to say anything. Okay, and another theme is about the racial discrimination, which many of us may have faced or may have meted out to others. If someone is from the different from the mainstream of society, they have to face the sort of racial discrimination. This is the aspect of human life. Okay, so here I came to the end of your revision. Once again, very best to all the students, and if you have any queries, any doubts regarding English, you can message me. As I told you, try to avoid the calls. If it's very urgent, then only you call in the working hours, children, that is from morning 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. you can call me. Hope so it's very clear. So better do all your best in all the exams. So prepare for your exam well. Goodbye, children.